Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to Horizon House and welcome to this gathering as we remember the life of our friend and loved one, Moira Borchert. My name is Linda Purdy and I'm the Director of Inner Wellbeing and Spirituality. Please don't try to say that fast. As we hear parts of her story today from the family and friends, we will all leave this place knowing her somewhat differently from when we came in. That's one of the treasures of being able to gather and remember someone we love. And there will even be the opportunity for some short anecdotes to be shared from some of you. But each one of us carries different memories in our hearts of Moira. And those are important. And telling those stories are important. So first, I would like to get an idea of who's here today. How many here are from her church family? Raise your hands. Wonderful. And how many here are former neighbors of hers? Ah, right. And then how many here are family? There you are in that right section. And how many here are Horizon House friends? All right, lovely. And I love the impression they made on this place in such a short time. So thank you all for being here to celebrate Moira's life. Please join me in prayer. Almighty and faithful Creator, all creation is of your making. All people are shaped in your image. As we now entrust dear Moira to your goodness and love, in your infinite wisdom and power, work in her your merciful purpose, known to you alone from the beginning of time. Console our hearts as we who love her remember her today and throughout the days to come. Be with us in this service. Grant us peace as we grieve. And we ask this through Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Oh, oops. Sorry about that. I left it on the other place. I wanted to begin by building sort of the foundation and skeleton of Moira's story that we will build on today. So she was born in 1935 at the South Lodge Nursing Home in Glasgow, Scotland. And she was named after one of the nurses who was there at her birth. She grew up during World War II, and as was a custom for many British children, she was sent off to live with a host family in the countryside during part of that war. As a child, her favorite sport was tennis, her favorite color was red, and her favorite food was trifle. I don't know what that is. What? I know, I'm sure I am. After finishing grammar school, she attended the Glasgow Eye Infirmary and became an orthoptist in 1956. Now, for you who have not heard that term, like I hadn't, what that is they are responsible for the diagnosis and non-surgical management of cross eyes, lazy eyes, and eye movement disorders. Responding to an advertisement in the local newspaper at age 23, she flew to New York and then took a train across the country to Seattle. She worked at an orthoptist clinic in Seattle and traveled extensively for work in Washington State. She learned that the pastor of the First Presbyterian Church in Seattle, Reverend Dr. Ralph Turnbull, was also from Scotland. So she started attending church there, and that was where she met Ted. Moira and Ted were married in Glasgow, Scotland in 1962. After their wedding, they moved to Las Vegas, Nevada for Ted's job. They lived there for about 6 years, where Paul and Alistair were born. And then returning to the Seattle area in 1968, they settled in the Magnolia area and lived there for many years. Moira was engaged in raising their 2 children, volunteered at church, school, and charities, and worked again as an ophthalmologist assistant at clinics in Tacoma and Bellevue. She also loved her 3 dachshund dogs over the years, Christy, Sweeper, and Willie. She enjoyed traveling and with Ted went on many cruises and trips to visit their grandchildren. Moira and Ted moved to Horizon House in 2018. She enjoyed meeting everyone that she could here. She loved the knitting group that met every week, playing bridge, and being a member of the H.H. British group, which I didn't know existed. So I'm so glad she got to be with other people from her homeland. She will be missed by one and all.
I am the oldest of her 5 grandchildren. I'm reading today from Ecclesiastes chapter 3. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to uproot. A time to weep, and a time to laugh. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones, and a time to gather them. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search, and a time to give up. A time to keep, and a time to throw away. A time to tear, and a time to mend. A time to be silent, and a time to speak.
So I'm Alistair, the son that lives overseas in Brussels, Belgium. I'm glad I was able to come home to Seattle and glad I was with my mom. I called her mom at the very end. I talked with her every Sunday, and during a conversation just a week before she entered hospice care, so 2 weeks before she died, I asked how she was. She said she was okay, and that there were others she knew that were worse off. So I did not really understand why she did not move to assisted living. But looking back, I now understand that she really was in assisted living for several years. It was just my dad doing all the assistance. Mom knew the end was near, and she was ready. I don't only have one memory that stands out. I don't really have one memory that stands out, rather many good ones over the last 57 years. Most memories of Mom are together with my dad. Mom worked extra hard to send us to good schools, working part-time at the ophthalmology clinic, demonstrating products at grocery stores, whatever it took. But we never lacked anything. Mom liked to cook, and we always had good food around the house that I never really appreciated at the time. After working in Tacoma at the ophthalmology clinic, Tuesdays that I recall, she would sometimes bring back crates of fresh vegetables, and I would recall being given the task of topping and tailing green beans. We also had literal frozen blocks of split pea soup in our freezer. She instilled values and hard work that made me who I am today, and I'm very happy about that. She liked to travel, and my parents came to see us and the grandchildren frequently in San Diego, Monterey, Japan, Norway, and Virginia. Whenever I came back to Seattle, I was always sent home with some cookies. Oatmeal balls were, and still are, my favorites. But I do like trifle too. If you haven't had trifle, make sure it's got a good drink. There's no way I could repay her for the last 57 years, but I was glad I could be with her in her final days, and even just to comb her hair. When my family came back to Seattle from wherever we lived at the time, We always tried to take my parents to a Harvest Vine restaurant in Madison Park, so I highly recommend it too. Those were special memories, and Mom always enjoyed the beets. The remolachas, as they are called, are a red and golden beet salad with sherry vinegar, olive oil, and garlic. I recall her with pieces of bread mopping up the last remnants of that dish on several occasions. So on Monday, we'll all go to a Harvest Vine restaurant and enjoy the beet. Enjoy the beet. It is time to have her, but we'll always have good memories of her. Thank you.
Anytime I have to introduce myself with my full name, people ask if my parents were fans of the rock band Jethro Tull. His lead singer's name is Ian Anderson. I probably told them no. It's named for my grandmother, Moira Anderson, the Anderson clan of Scotland. It's her tartan that I wear today. Our tartan I wear today for her. Some of my earliest memories are when my family lived here in Washington. My dad was in the Navy. We did not spend a lot of time growing up here. Memories of this time are fuzzy. We were recalling this past week, one in particular, little small toy figure my grandmother would carry in a purse. We couldn't really figure out what his name was, even what he really looked like, but it must have been pretty special if a little 3-year-old kid would remember it all these years later. I cherish the summer I lived in Grand and Grandpa's basement, the summer after my freshman year, after so many years living away and overseas, just to spend that time with them. Granny would apologize almost daily that things weren't as exciting as life at the university. But after a year of extremely early mornings, equally late nights, typically watching the sunrise over the Magnolia Hill with a cup of coffee, reading the Seattle Times next to her, it was perfect. One of the few family traditions that we've kept consistently every year at Christmas was Gran's Christmas trifle, her own family recipe. We always smile as we try to decipher her handwritten recipe year after year. I have no doubt this year we'll once again share a bittersweet smile and cherish her memory as we add a little extra drink just for her, trying to once again decipher that handwritten recipe. I'll never forget and remain incredibly grateful for the time I got to spend with her since returning home here to Washington. But I'll miss most of all, and I felt most of all this week, it was just the joy she would bring to our room. I still recall anytime I would come in, my sibling and I would come into the room with just the big smile, the joy in her eyes, the happiness every time we would come visit, no matter how short. And that has been lacking this week. It has been missed. Thank you, Grant. You are missed more than words can say, and I look forward to the day that we will all be together again.
Well, my name is Moira Borchert. Being here today with the family and everyone else here at Horizon House to remember, celebrate, and honor my grandmother is quite bittersweet, but special. She was my gran, and I have a couple of memories, but I wanted to share this one in particular. I'm sure we've all mentioned trifle and oatmeal balls, and so I'd like to preface by saying that oatmeal balls are also a tradition, a huge hit in the Borchert family. And every time my dad would come back from visiting Seattle, he always had a large Ziploc bag. And I'd always take handfuls at a time and enjoy them like a little squirrel or chipmunk, and secretly hoped I could finish the bag. My dad always got that honor, yeah. At this time, I was living in Belgium with my parents and my dogs, and I wanted to carry on the oatmeal ball legacy. And so I decided to use Call Gran on FaceTime, which also carries many fun memories of her covering the camera with her thumb and the microphone with her hand. But she seemed so happy to get that sudden call from her grandchild asking how to make oatmeal balls. And it was always a treat that we enjoyed because she and Grandpa would always make them. The first time making Pokeballs here at Horizon House after I had moved to Seattle for school was so special. And I remember Gran sitting on the couch telling me exactly how many of what to put in the pot and where exactly the ingredients were. And that also impressed me that she knew exactly where everything was in the kitchen without getting up. While she would close her eyes and say, it's under the sugar, it's under the flour. And so she'd always help me if I needed to find it. I always enjoyed flipping through the cookbooks and the recipe notes upstairs in Granny and Grandpa's kitchen so I could bake something tasty while I got the seasonal tablecloths and flour arrangements out as per Granny's requests and guidance. I'm not the most extroverted grandchild, but being able to connect with you through food and recipes and magazines was always something I valued and still value. So thank you for telling me the recipe for oatmeal balls so I can make them whenever I miss the smell of your kitchen. Thank you for worrying about me wandering around downtown Seattle and asking me how the weather was on my walk up from the hill on the bus stop. You would always mention how it's such a long time to ride the bus from the car line, but it's always one I wanted to take because it meant that I could see you, it meant that I could talk to you, and it meant that I could be here at Horizon House with you.
I'm reading this from my mother, Tanya, who is in Brussels, Belgium, and unable to attend today. I have so many memories of Moira. Choosing one is really difficult after so many years, so many conversations, so many moments. If I had to choose one, it would be how much I loved hearing about her childhood in Scotland. That was an entirely new world for me, and I really enjoyed every time she talked about anything from her own memories. I remember once, after Lars, my brother, was born, Moira and I were watching All Creatures Great and Small together. I couldn't understand what the farmers were saying in one of the scenes because it was located in northern England on the border with Scotland. Moira knew every word and translated it on the spot. I was really impressed by this larger world and experience that lived quietly inside her. In 2003, Alistair, our 3 children, and I went to Glasgow and Edinburgh with Ted and Moira. This was a really special experience. But the most memorable part for me was driving past Moira's childhood home and also the homes of her relatives. I remember we went with her cousin Alistair MacLeod to the street and house where Moira grew up. Seeing the house of her childhood was so interesting, but the more riveting part was the sudden stream of memories and stories that came out of Alistair MacLeod and Moira in that moment. Some of those stories were pretty intense. There was one about the bombings in the United Kingdom during the war, and how they thought they were safe in Glasgow. They laughed so hard at that, which the rest of us couldn't really follow why it was so funny. There was another story about Moira having her tonsils out on the kitchen table. Alistair MacLeod and Moira laughed until they cried over that memory, standing in the street, tears streaming down their faces, and the rest of us just looking on in complete surprise and honestly some confusion. In that moment, I realized those memories and that part of Moira's life were special for her and for her cousin, and that we were just people who could only view it from the outside, not having shared in those years of the war and post-war Scotland. Because of that, I am so grateful for every single time that she shared stories of her childhood and trusted us as a family to know those memories, which we could never really understand all the way. Yet, she shared graciously and freely anytime one of us asked her about something. School memories, family memories, food memories with recipes, and even language memories to clarify what some farmers on the northern border of England were saying in the discussion. Thank you, Moira. Thank you, Moira. Thank you for sharing so generously with love and gratitude from Tanya.
This is from my sibling Lars, who is currently attending graduate school in Denmark and is unable to attend. Quite a short one. My favorite memories of Gran are just all the times I would go to visit her at Horizon House to help her with her iPad difficulties. It was always nice to see her and Grandpa for a few hours and help with a few small jobs around the house, or sometimes pick things up from the store on the way over. The regular, everyday moments are always my favorites. After moving from Seattle to Denmark last year, I already miss Gran, and I'm going to miss her even more now.
So this is from my mom's cousin and my namesake, Alistair MacLeod, who's mentioned in my mom's piece, who lives in Edinburgh, Scotland. This is from Alistair. We both grew up during the Second World War. I was born 4 years after Moira, and during the early 1940s we lived in Muir End, a suburb of Glasgow, near to where we had our wartime refuge. Moira was like a big sister to me, and we've always been close for over 80 years. I recall Moira as a student at the well-known Glasgow school, Hutchinson's Grammar, affectionately known as Hutchin. She was a mean tennis player in her youth and also played the piano. Chopin comes to mind. Our families met frequently, and I recall Moira and I would often sit and be entertained by the lively dialogue between our two mothers and our mother's older sister. Moira married Ted at Shawlands Parish Church in Glasgow, and she was given away by her uncle, my father Kenneth. I visited Moira and Ted on several occasions in Seattle and recall the great warmth of the welcome, and they were always generous hosts. I recall the lovely view of the Seattle city from their house and enjoying barbecues in their backyard. Moira and Ted visited us in Scotland in the 1990s. We hosted a surprise family gathering, and some of those attended had not communicated for several years. Moira said it was like, this is your life. Moira was always good at getting people together. I will miss Moira dearly. And then the last one here is from Donna Mann, my mother-in-law, who lives in Shelton, Washington, and is unable to attend. My sweetest memory of Moira will always be how she looked at my doorway on her first visit here in Shelton. She looked absolutely gorgeous in her hot pink jumpsuit, blonde hair almost glowing with the sun on it, and her beaming, lovely, smiling face. Such a beautiful vision. That's how I will always remember her.
I'm Paul. We're going to have Psalm 23 played for us. My mom was not the greatest singer, so if you don't sing, that's okay. If you can hum, that's okay. And if you know the words, hopefully you'll sing louder and have it for the rest of us. It's the Scottish Psalter version, so there are many versions of Psalm 23. You might know it, or maybe you'll hum, or maybe you'll enjoy it.
He continue sharing remembrances, I have an opportunity to pray for us and thank the Lord for Moira's life in the midst of this. My name is Jeff Newinchwander, and I pastor Central Community Church, and I have had the privilege of knowing Ted and Moira as they came over from First Pres, and with a wonderful group. And as a young pastor, I would say they bolstered me very much to show up and even give me an audience. It felt very encouraging. When I think of Moira, I think of what the scripture says is the joy of the Lord is our strength. And when I think of her, she had the joy of God, and she was very strong. And even pre-pandemic, before we went online, she was showing up even in her walker on Sundays, and I felt her strength. And I really miss that. Let's thank the Lord for your life as we continue to share. Heavenly Father, we thank you for Moira and all the things that have already been shared and will be shared. The gift she was to so many. Thank you for giving her to us, to love as a companion on this earth, and to be loved by her. Thank you for all the ways she served and impacted those around her. Thank you for her impact as a mother to her two sons, Paul and Alistair, and a grandmother, and especially as a cherished wife to Ted, a co-worker, a servant, a member of church. What a gift she has been to so many. We know that she has borne much fruit through her life, and fruit that will last for many years to come. As your word says, Lord, precious in the sight of you are the death of your saints. You've received Moira with joy, but her absence leaves a gap in our lives. So as we continue to share, as we continue to remember, in your boundless compassion, console us who mourn, and help us all continue our course on earth until by your will we are reunited with her. Through your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
I'm Philip. I'm Moira's grandson, youngest. I'll be reading John 14. Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I'm going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you may also be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going.
So I'm Paul, the oldest, and my family will be joining me. I thought I'd start first of all with a message from Joyce James, who's a childhood friend and matron of honor at my mom's wedding. You'll find Joyce in two pictures in the back. One is the group shot of the wedding, and then there's a picture of two kids essentially playing dress up, and one of them is my mom, and Joyce is the other one. And she has a story that she wants told, and it's mostly for the grandchildren because it's a time when our mom was quite naughty. So it's a surprise for them. They don't know what it is. This is Joyce's voice. I think I can claim to have known Moira longer than anyone here today, having first met her as a toddler when our young mothers were having afternoon tea together. We were neighbors, spelled with a U, neighbors, and it was easy to walk the short distance from Moira's home to mine, and so we became playmates. This was the late 1930s, and these were simpler times for children with no television or iPhones to entertain us. So we created our own games. Moira's mom, my Aunt Biddy, allowed us to play in the garden hut as long as we didn't touch any of the tools therein. And so This was where our most daring adventure took place. One summer afternoon, we decided to pretend that the hut was our house, and we would dress up as a daddy and a mummy. We rummaged in our dress-up trunk and found old garden trousers for Moira. She was taller, so she had to be the daddy. And I found a long dress with high heels for me. And then we put our dolls in the stroller and decided that now we were a complete family. But something was missing. What was it? Oh, it was, of course, both our daddies smoked cigarettes. So into the house, and a quick search revealed several packs of unopened cigarettes and a box of matches easily found in the kitchen. And feeling very pleased with ourselves, we returned to the hut. Striking the matches was the easy part. Getting the cigarette to light was more of a challenge. First Moira blew as I held and lit the lit match to the tip of the cigarette, and that didn't work. So they tried again. "You're blowing too hard. Let me try." I was a bossy girl, so we reversed positions, and I blew so hard that I extinguished the match. I don't remember how long we spent trying to master this challenge, but I do remember like yesterday that when Paul and Alistair's granny, my Aunt Biddy, arrived, she could smell the burning matches coming from the hut, and she discovered two 5-year-olds sitting in the midst of a pile of ruined soggy cigarettes and a mountain of burnt matches. It was game over. I was sent home in disgrace. Moira was, I never discovered. But perhaps she escaped because Moira's dad had previously amused us by blowing perfect smoke rings. Maybe he was the one in hot water. In the 1940s and World War II raging in Europe, it was that fall that as 5-year-olds we were trotted off to school escorted by one or the other of our moms. Two little girls with large school bags balanced sort of on our shoulders and a hat on our head bearing the school insignia, and always a cumbersome gas mask slumped across our bodies. These were mandatory dress code for everyone everywhere in the UK wherever you went. Our school affectionately was known as Hutchie, the Hutchison Girl in grammar school, was 400 years old, and we thought the teachers were about that old too, especially because the young ones were called up for national service with only the older ones left. Our moms had attended this school a generation before, and it had become a tradition. We still spent years playing with one another, vacationing together, and trips to the pretty village of Brookfield to visit Moira's granny, and occasionally sometimes met up with cousin Alistair and Colin if they happened to be staying there. Dear Moira was a hard-working A student at the end after graduating, and she headed north to Aberdeen University to study optometry. Her courses complete, she came back to Glasgow to say goodbye to me and say that she had accepted a position in Seattle. I was full of admiration for her courage to leave for a new country so far away and solo, but I was sad to see her go. Contact was intermittent until Ted arrived on the scene. Moira was very excited to let us know they were going to become engaged, and she was coming home for a visit. I was living in Edinburgh with my husband and 2 younger children when Moira visited and asked me to be her matron of honor. I was honored to accept. I have a poignant memory from the wedding day when Moira emerged from the bedroom in her wedding dress and veil. Her uncle Kenneth wept, quite overcome with emotion, watching the scene unfold. And I felt very sad that Moira's own dad had not lived long enough to be the one to walk her down the aisle. It was typical of Moira's loyalty to family and home that she wanted to return to the church of her youth, where we both attended Sunday school and brownies and then guides before she started her marriage in Seattle. Ted and his brother, Dwayne, the best man, must have felt a little overwhelmed by Scottish hospitality. In due course, along came Paul, and once again I was given the honor of being his godmother, which I still enjoy to this day. And as a side note, she was, unbelievable birthday cards and whatnot every year. As time went by, we were busy raising our children and only connected at our birthdays and anniversaries. Thanks to Paul and Diane's organization, we managed to talk to Ted and Moira on their 50th wedding anniversary last October. My dear friend never complained about her condition when asked, and she was forever a classy lady, remaining cheerful at all times. We exchanged emails 2 weeks ago, and the first time she admitted that life was becoming challenging. Until we meet again, love, Joyce.
Hello, I'm Paul's wife, Diane, and Moira's daughter-in-law. It would take me a long time to enumerate all the ways in which Moira and Ted have been so lovingly and intricately involved in our family, so I will sum it up the best I can. She warmly welcomed me into her family without even really knowing me, mostly because she knew how much I loved her son and still love her son. 3 years later, 3 years after we were married, she joyously welcomed her first grandchild by her eldest son, Grace, and then 2 years later, Philip. Let's see. Although before they arrived, she was constantly inquiring about my state of health, hoping to hear that I was suffering from morning sickness, I'm sure, waiting for that grandchild. Anyhow, she was so excited, and she was such a loving and caring gran. She and Ted took care of Grace and Philip on many occasions when I returned to work, and I would often return to a great smelling, flower-filled kitchen and 2 very happy children excited to reveal their day's adventures baking and going to the park with Gran and Papa. Moira and Ted hosted many wonderful memory-filled holidays, with carefully chosen decorations, super tasty meals, and so on. I attribute my children's culinary skills all to my grandpapa. God knows they didn't get it from me. I have 5 sisters, and whenever they or my parents came to visit, she would host them at her home with a fantastic, delicious meal and make them feel as loved and as welcome as she did with me. She always inquired after my family, sending her love to my mom and dad. After losing my father and mother, Moira was a great comfort. Moira taught me how to relax and enjoy and laugh on holidays. Because unfortunately, holidays at my home while growing up was often tense, with many competing personalities and expectations. She modeled for me that holidays and celebrations should always be filled with great conversation, a lot of laughter, delicious food, and love. And I am forever grateful to Moira for that, because I was able to raise my own children that way. There are so many reasons why beautiful Moira made such an impact on my life. However, most importantly, she always made me feel like I was her very own daughter. Moira, I will miss you tremendously.
Hi everyone, I'm Grace, and daughter to my dad, and I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet because I think that's how my grandmother wanted it. Growing up, she always kept birthday cards short and sweet. There was always a cute design, a reiteration of happy birthday, and we love you, and there was usually a generous check. Sometimes there would be a sentence or 2 that made me feel special from Papa or Gran, but if it was Gran's writing, my dad always had to translate. At some point, cards turned into emails because I grew up and technology progressed and I moved across the state for school. For my Gran's birthday this year, I wrote her an email telling her how much I love her. I told her I was blessed to have her as a grandma. I told her she asked the kindest questions and was such a good listener, that she was funny and her humor was not unnoticed. I told her I appreciated her wisdom and advice, that I appreciated how much she ingrained the importance of family into me. I told her I've always loved her cooking and baking. I told her I loved her fashion sense and her interior design. I wrote that I was appreciative appreciated how growing up, she asked my opinion on what scarf to wear or what the color of the season was. I told her it was questions like that that made me feel valued and taught me to value the little things in life. She showed me the importance of dressing well every day, not just on special occasions. She showed me how lovely it feels to have the house decorated for every holiday. She showed me the importance of sitting and having a cup of coffee with a treat. She showed me how to be a polite hostess and take your time with your food to assure that you're the last one done eating so that no one feels left out. I think most of all, she showed me the importance of calling the people you love to check in. I ended that note by telling her happy birthday and that I wished I could be there to celebrate and help with any of the little tasks she inevitably had for me. My whole life she asked me to help with those tasks and always made me feel really important. So I told her how grateful I was for that. Her reply to that birthday note was, Gracie, lovely note. Just finished watching Australian Open tennis. And then it was followed by her famous ellipses. And then she told me what they'd been up to at Horizon House. But this was very much in grand fashion, and I don't want anyone to think for a moment that I didn't know how much she loved me and our whole family. I have over 350 emails in a saved folder that shows how much she and Papa love me. I have old cards from Valentine's Day to St. Patrick's Day to everything in between. I have so many memories from soccer games, to dance recitals to plays, to volunteering at my elementary school. Some of my earliest memories are from them babysitting me and looking out at that really gorgeous view at the Magnolia House. This week I was going through all the voicemails my grand left me. This speech probably isn't as short or as sweet as she would have wanted it to be. So I thought before I drag on, I'd just end it with some of her words, in her little voice, now she left me.
How do you be? What stage are you at in life? And play and work? Okay. Just go and say hello. Take care of them. Bye.
I got it. Philip he is a great grandkid, and he was really good about FaceTiming Gran. We'd be like in the middle of nowhere on a hike, and I'd be huffing and puffing, and he'd be like, hey Gran, look where we are. But he's gonna wing it now.
Yeah, so similar to Ian and Laura, or Ian and Gus and Grace, and especially you, we all were trying to teach Gran how to use technology. Because technology is everything these days, and it's the biggest pain at the same time. So he always just assigned me right to it and got me to it. And since I was 6, that's one of the things I would always do. It's just an iPad lesson every single time. And no matter how silly it was, or how repetitive it was, or if it was downloading Solitaire, or trying to get rid of ads on something that you couldn't get rid of, or figuring out Wordle, or anything in between, or whatever it was, something wasn't working that was working yesterday. It wasn't working today. I'm so glad I did it. Being the youngest grandkid, I had the least amount of time, but it was still the most meaningful. And I was able to, through teaching Gran how to FaceTime, I was able to call her at every single adventure. Every single time I would go snowboarding, every single time I was with friends, anytime I wasn't with her, I knew I could call her. And I did, almost probably 3 times a week for at least the past 4 years. I would call her every week and check in, and I knew that she was there for me. I could talk to her and speak with her, and I will forever miss that. And that'd be great.
Yeah, she loved those calls because
her greatest delight was her grandkids, all of you. And when you called live from somewhere, she knew that you had been to the top of the mountain, whether skiing or hiking, and I didn't know that yet, so she had one on me. She loved that. So that was pretty awesome. I don't know if I can get through my tribute, but I'm the Edmonds brother, and my mom would be proud of us for having a party, and we want to be sure that you know there's a reception at the back. And if you guys don't mind, would you take a picture of this here so we have that available? My mom was so eager when I was a kid. She wanted to know all my friends, and she had the biggest heart for people coming over. And sometimes she didn't get the right words. Sometimes she would say, "Thank you for coming. I'm so glad you're Paul's friend." We didn't know if you really had that many friends. So we're really glad you came by today. So on behalf of my family, myself, we want to thank you so much for coming today, and we're really glad that you could be Moira's friend. Thank you for that. She'd be upset that the napkins don't match the color of whatever's out there. Sorry, Mom, it's the best we could do on short notice. And she was a great cook. And yeah, most recently, I want to thank my brother for coming back from Europe recently, because right to the end, you were on the wrong time zone, which was just right. We never left our mom alone. We were a good team, and my daughter can be a nurse, and she would say, "Oh, Dad, you almost got that right." We did the best we could, and we loved our mom right to the end. My mom loved me. She was so proud to be Scottish. And we heard some stories about her Scottish years. She didn't like the 4th of July very much because it sounded like a memory that didn't match our lives, so that was always confusing to us. And it didn't make sense to us that the dresser that was in her bedroom was the one that she hid behind during the war. It's like, isn't that where you put your clothes? That was a strange thing for us. But one thing that she did keep going was first footing, and my dad kept that going too. First footing happens the first day of the new year, where a gentleman coming into the house would bring some coin, some shortbread, some coal, and hopefully some whiskey. And the coin was for wealth, and the shortbread was for food, and the coal was for warmth of the house, and the whiskey was so that you would have good friends to share with all year long. I feel like my mom first footed all year round, and she just kind of had that spirit of, if you needed a place to come, she would welcome anyone, anytime. And it must have been hard for her to start over again in the States. I do remember Mom every Sunday night calling to her mom in the United Kingdom, and she had a timer set for 5 minutes, I'm pretty sure, because that's all we could afford. And when the timer went, she had to say, "Sorry, Mom, we gotta go," or "I'll call you next Sunday," which would have been Monday morning at her place. So she valued her connection all the way till her mom passed. Every time the Queen was on TV or the Christmas message, we were expected to offer many happy returns on the Queen's message or an anniversary. And so thank you to the Horizon House Bush group friends who were able to keep that going. She blessed me every time I have routine paperwork, and my brother as well. We know that we have a little Scottish heritage because the names we prefer to be called are our middle names, and our first names are bonus, so we do that. Thanks, Mom. My mom was super proud to be a mom and a grandmother in Magnolia. It's almost unreal to think about how Pollyannish it was. It was just innocence personified, family. It's everything I wish for my family now. It was possible to walk home from school for lunch on a rare occasion. She could lean out the back door and just ring the dinner bell or whatever bell we wanted, time to come home. So that was awesome, and I hope you remember the bright red azalea bush we always had to close in front of for Easter pictures, and when her mom came. I'm blessed by my mom with the ability to spell in 2 languages. I was one of the few kids that got to spell either the British way or the American way. Is it neighbor with a U? Is it potato with an E? Either way is okay. So she loved the dogs, and our dogs always had classic music playing for them or talk radio. So some people come by and say, I thought someone was home, but we weren't home. It was the dogs that got there. My mom supported me all the time with my dad. We played all the sports, floor hockey, basketball, soccer, swimming. It rained a lot, but there were always oranges at halftime. And we had the classic garbage bag for reindeer. And the ride home was we were always congratulated for our effort. It was about the work, not the results. Mom appreciated that. And you've probably heard a lot about the cookies my mom made. For years, my 2 didn't like oatmeal balls. Those were the glory years, but I know it's hard to share with me. It was the taste of home all the time, and my dad made them a lot at PM too. My mom was proud of her work that she did as an optometrist and kept going, and she taught me a lot about work. And she was a demonstrator. We cleaned the real estate office on Friday nights sometimes. We kept things going. I first inherited the title of head greenskeeper, which I thought was a real thing, but no, it was just at our house where you got to mow the lawn because you were the head greenskeeper. But we learned nothing is given, everything is earned. My brother far surpassed me in my long distance. That's a different thing. My mom was proud to be a wife of Ted. She was beautiful and classy and elegant, which is hard in a world surrounded by boys, especially teenage boys. She did not like camping, which is probably why we loved camping. We could let our hair down and tell jokes you weren't supposed to tell around the house. My mom didn't take shortcuts, and she was there for us when my dad and I have had health scares. She was beautiful in the way she supported us, and she was extremely welcoming of new wives, first Tanya and then my wife Diane. And my mom loved pillows.
Oh, yes.
And so did the wives, yes. I want to thank my dad especially for being an endless caregiver to my mom, and you were so steady and steadfast, and you kept your vow to her forever, so well done, good and faithful servant. We want to thank all the childhood friends and Magnolia friends and First Presbyterian Church friends and Horizon House friends, and I know you missed my mom, and I know she was proud of you. I know she was proud of me. And my mom was also proud to be called a Christian, and First Presbyterian Church was a home away from home for me. There was Whirlybird and potlucks on Wednesday nights, which was right after her Tuesday night working, and a potluck dish was always ready without any thought. She just showed up, and more times than not, it came home empty. She was kind of proud of that. And she was always made sure we dressed a little fancy when it was time to serve the coffee or the punch. When it was our week, it was hard to believe there was a time people had the honor of pouring coffee for the guests. That's true. She's a wedding assistant and coordinator for First Presbyterian Church too. She taught me that everything we have is a gift. She was a very grateful person, and yet she was a realist. We were believers, not me believers, and Jesus reframes whatever problems or pains we have. She helped me understand that. So I'm trying to know more about that now. Thank you, Mom. Well done. Good and faithful servant.
This is your time. It's not very long, but you'll have a reception to share more. Push these on. I think that's enough. Move one down one side and down the other. I need to show you how to use a mic. These are like ice cream cones. Well, you don't lick them, but you're talking to the top of them. Otherwise, nobody can hear you when you're talking down like this. So just want to remind you, but if anybody has a short story to share about Moira, raise your hand, and one of these two handsome men will bring you a mic. Don't let me scare you when I say the word short. There we go. Okay. You can read that side and Philip on the other side.
Well, I met Moira at London School, where a little red-haired boy was dancing and bowing to his partner. And it turned out that the woman who was so proud of him turned out to be Moira, and the little boy that was dancing turned out to be Paul. And that was the beginning of a lovely friendship. I was a Canadian. We understood many things like Boxing Day, the Queen, shortbread, sausage rolls, things like Christmas pudding that you had to drink starting October. So we understood things like that nobody else did. When I moved to Japan, she was my personal shopper for my long-legged children's jeans. But then when I moved to Spain, she came and we had a wonderful time visiting bodegas and doing all things Spanish. After the boys left, we always shared Christmas together and also sometimes Boxing Day. So she was a good friend, and we had a lot of cultural things to share, and we had a lot of laughs through the years about food and things that people didn't understand us, but we understood. But there was a common bond, and we went to cooking classes, and I still have some of the recipes. So I will miss her. She was a great friend, and it's been a long friendship. Thanks.
And do you have the trifle recipe?
Yes.
That's legible?
They also share illegible handwriting that requires translation.
Oh, no. Okay.
Maybe this year we'll type a copy.
Yeah. Who's next? Right there.
My name's Heidi, and I've known Moira probably for 30 years. I worked with her at the eye doctor clinic with Joan and Colleen, and after she left and I left, we still remain friends till this week. And I will miss her. She was a great friend, helped me through a lot of hard times, and I really loved her. So thank you for sharing her.
Thank you, Heidi.
Especially you. Ted was great.
Thank you, Heidi.
My name's Colleen, and as Heidi said, Joan and Heidi and Moira and I all work together with at Dr. Friedman's office, and I moved here almost 30 years ago, a little after Heidi, and Moira was so welcoming and kind. When I got to the office, she was one of my first friends, as well as these ladies, and I think Joan is probably her oldest friend here in America, because they were both in their early 20s when they were orthoptists overseas and came here to America. So we have a lot of great memories of Moira. She was always so cheerful, as everyone has said. She always had a kind word for the patients and was very understanding no matter what their problem was, and an excellent orthoptist and a hard worker, as her sons have mentioned. And I remember her shortbread cookies. She never did give me that recipe, but we did enjoy it. And she just was always so thoughtful, and we're really going to miss her a lot.
And so did Joan come from Scotland too?
England.
England. Oh, wow.
I'm an orthoptist too.
How long did it take you to learn how to pronounce it?
From the time I was 16, I decided that's what I wanted to be.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful.
But I had been here about 2 or 3 years before Moira came. So I met her when she first came.
Wonderful.
Yeah. That's great.
A long friendship. That's a very long friendship. It sure is. We have one more. Anybody on this side? Are you afraid? One more story? All right.
Hello. I met Moira at CCC, the church that we attended, and she and Ted oftentimes sat in the chairs, the 2 chairs, in front of Kai and I, and it was always a delight and to see them arrive. And as time passed and it was harder and harder for them to get around, I was so impressed with their determination to come and worship and to be with their Christian family. And I have to say, I admired her love for Jesus. She had, I felt, a very strong faith that was inspirational to me.
Every Thursday morning in the Robert Durham room, a group of us meet for knitting. It's mostly talking, but it's some knitting. And every morning there she was with her bright and smiling face and cheerful countenance, and we'll miss her.
And I'm so glad that you can still do that, but that you have that group. She's one of the residents here. Her name is Pat. Well, thank you for sharing your stories. I hope that they continue. We will be out in our fireside lounge, which I call our living room, for our reception. And I would like to close in prayer and in a benediction. First of all, thank you, Holy One, for Moira. Thank you for all the things that she taught us, all the ways we will remember her, and all the new things we learned about her as we leave this place. That many of us, I'm sure, are wishing we had known these things about her when she was around, so we could have talked about them or connected. But they are a part of who she was and is to us now. And so bless those memories as you comfort us. In your holy name. And so now as you go from here, continue to tell Moira's stories. And may the stories that you share today fill your spirits with good memories, and may those memories be a comfort to you in the days to come. May you honor Moira with rich laughter as well as your genuine tears. May the conversations and connections you make today draw you closer as her family and friends. And may Moira's strong spirit, stories, and connection to you all accompany you in the years ahead. May her enjoyment of family and fun be a daily invitation to each one of us, starting with this celebration. As you go from here, be blessed with peace as you grieve, the love of God to lead you, plus much joy and laughter. Go in peace.